Thank you, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for Wednesday, December 13th. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I need approval of our agenda. So, moved by Councillor McAleer, seconded by Councillor Tweel. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest for our agenda today? I'm not seeing any. We're going to move, business arising from the closed session. I think that's supposed to be down. We'll go into approval of our previous draft minutes from November 22nd, 2023. I need someone to move those. Moved by Councillor McAleer, second by His Worship. Any business arising out of those previous minutes? Not seeing any. So now we're going to move to, before we come back into an open session, we're going to move into a closed session as per Section 119, subsection 1E of the Municipal Government Act of PEI. This is going to be a matter still under consideration on some potential land negotiations. So we're going to go to closed and we will return after the discussion.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question with the closed session?
In closed session?
No, closed session. So we're going into closed session.
Yeah.
So I want to make it clear that anything that's stated in the closed session is to stay in the closed session.
That is the expectation when you're in a closed session. It's not to be discussed outside the chamber.
Okay. Could I ask the CAO what are some of the consequences if it is, if information comes out of this closed session to the public? What are the, can I just ask the CAO, because I just want that for the public record.
Absolutely.
Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. I think you might need a mic, Eleanor. You might want to even sit at one of those mics. You might be at...
No, come on over.
And Madam Chair, the reason I'm asking, because I think what Scott has been trying to do, and I appreciate all the work he's doing, but anything that deals with land it's imperative that it stays closed because it could jeopardize any future
for sure.
And I just wanted to know what are the consequences
for sure.
if one of
we're
us.
going to let
Please.
the CAO
Thank you.
explain that for clarity purpose.
Thank you, Chair, and through to your worship to answer your question here. There's a couple of penalties that are listed under the Municipal Government Act, Section 119.6. And I'll just tell you what it reads because it's easier just to read it to you real quick. Where a council member, a council committee member, or an employee contravenes Section 5, that's 119.5 of the Municipal Government Act, and the municipality suffers a financial loss or the member or employee gains financially as a result of the disclosure of or action, the member or employee is guilty of an offense and on a summary conviction is liable in damages to the municipality for the amount of the financial loss, if any, suffered by the municipality as a result of the disclosure or action. B, is liable in damages to the municipality for the amount of the financial gain to the member or employee, if any, as a result of the disclosure or action. Or C, if the person is a council member or council committee member, is disqualified. And then it goes into 1, from continuing to serve on council or the council committee or both, as the case may be, and from being a candidate at any municipal election held in the 5 years after the commission of the offense. And there's a second part to this, which is inquiry, which is 119.7, where a council member or council committee member contravenes Section 119.5, but there is no financial loss to the municipality or gain to the member as a result of the disclosure or action. The council may, by a vote of 2/3 of its members, request under 217 that the minister conduct an inquiry into the conduct of the member to determine whether the member should be disqualified from continuing to serve on council or the council committee or both, as the case may be. Thanks.
I guess that is pretty clear that it's serious to not follow the rules of closed session.
Thank you,
behavior.
Madam Chair. Thank you, CAO Eleanor.
Thank you. So we're good now. I need someone to move to go into closed. So it's moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Tweel. You good to move to closed? Seconded by Councillor Tweel. All those in favor? And we'll go into closed now. Thank you. Very much.
Why, you don't like open sessions?
Signal detect. We're back on. Meeting in progress. Well, thank you, and that was great discussion. And an update on the closed session is that there will be further discussion at a future time on what was discussed today. So I'm going to move into discussions and reports, and the first one we have is parking and cycling lanes. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report comes to us through Police Protective Emergency Services. There has been a request to review streets that have marked cycle lanes along the shoulders of the streets and limit the amount of parking in those bike lanes. We've reviewed it, and so has the City Police. We are both recommending that we make an amendment to the current traffic bylaw that restricts parking on-street parking in any designated bike lane in the city.
I'll start.
Zach, is it our committee that's responsible for the parking traffic bylaw?
We are responsible for the city's traffic bylaw, that's correct.
Terms of reference.
Okay. Councillor Tweel, you have a question?
Councillor Tweel, you have to turn on your mic.
Jeez, what's wrong with this? Okay, am I on now?
Yeah, you'll have to start over so the public can hear you.
Pardon me?
Start over so the public can hear you.
Okay. So, Scott, I understand the rationale, and obviously you've had discussions with Protective Services, more specifically the Police Department, and this is a joint recommendation. So in terms of probability, from a traffic enforcement perspective, how reliable is that going to be? Some of these cycling lanes that we have in our city, as you know this better than I do, I'm not an engineer, but some of these so-called traffic cycling lanes are not really cycling lanes. I would say they're interim measures until such time we have true, consistent cycling lanes that meet national standards or active transportation pathways throughout the city of Charlottetown, where you can say, that is the standard, that is the benchmark, and that's what we're striving for. So, again, my first question is, from an enforcement perspective, how consistent will the enforcement be, Scott?
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Tweel, I can't comment specifically on enforcement. That is the Protective Services. What I do know from our discussions with the police services, it's only in particular areas that there is this concern. You look at Northwood Road, University Avenue. No one's parking on the streets where there are marked bike lanes. It's only certain residential streets that have marked cycle and lanes that they have some problematic areas of parking. Working with the police department, we will erect the proper signage so that they can enforce the regulations, and then we will work with them to, target some areas that may be of concern, or people who are not responding to the signage. Typically, you'll see some high-level responses early on, but there might be a few areas or a few residents that may think that they're exempt from it or just ignore the signs, and those are the areas that we'll have to focus on. But again, from the enforcement perspective, how many resources and all that stuff they can put towards it, I can't comment on that. All I can comment is what we can do to help police enforce the changes in the bylaw.
We put the rules up and put the signs up, and then it's up to them.
Scott, just on that, can you please?
Can you just wait? I'm just trying to summarize what he said, and I'll come back to you in a second.
Well, I already heard what he said.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm just going to summarize it for the rest of us to make sure that we're all on the same page, Councillor Tweel. The bottom line is we're talking about you're erecting the signage in the area, and we're also going to do some sort of a public service to make sure that people are aware that this is the new. We're not going to talk about the police's job in Public Works today. Is there something you have to say about the signage that they're going to put
With all
up?
due respect, Madam Chair, I think what we're discussing here is relevant to the recommendation we're going to be bringing to council. And I think we need to look at how this is going to actually function. Is it going to be functional or is it going to be dysfunctional? So that's why we're here.
Well,
to
no,
ask
because
those
that would be a
questions.
question for the police committee. They're the enforcers. The job here is they've asked the Public Works Committee to put signage up
All right.
so that they can enforce. How can Scott Adams decide how they're going to enforce? Well, then get to the question. Okay, go ahead.
Scott, since you're working with the police department, can you let them know that, well, one of the concerns I have is going to be consistency. And I'd like to know what the probability is, if we're going to recommend this, is that there is going to be consistency so that the community can have an expectation, so that there will be that enforcement and it won't be, you know, just where vehicles that are parked in cycling lanes are not going to obey the signage. That's one of the concerns I have, Scott.
And we can definitely convey that information to the police. Also, the public have the option to call the police department if they're cycling the road, they see a vehicle parked in a cycle lane when there's a sign erect. And the police are typically very responsive. I've called them numerous times for assistance on moving vehicles, whether they're impeding traffic or blocking a sidewalk. And again, they rely, you know, everyone, we all rely on the public. Public are everywhere, and we appreciate when folks call in concerns. And it makes our job easier as well, because we can't be everywhere at once. So there's a number of tactics that can be used to enforce that. Is there going to be growing pains? Yes. Just like any new initiative, there's going to be a period where a learning curve. But once people get used to it, you do see improvements along with parking. You do. We see very good conformance on a lot of streets that have no parking now. It's rare that we have to go back or the police have to go back and take it and tow someone. So no parking is quite effective. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of education for drivers to get there.
And I think without the signs, you can't enforce. So that's why we're here today to decide, are we going to put signs up? And then, that was my point, that the police can go and enforce, whether they get to go everywhere at the same time. Anyway, is there any more questions on
Madam
the
Chair,
bylaw?
I just want to say that, yes, we're talking about signage, the enforcement is with police, I fully agree. But you know what, as a cyclist, it is not the safest pathway when cars are parked in that laneway. And I think you've already asked, or it was asked before, we have to identify these areas, and they have to be posted on our website or charlottetownhall.ca that please do not park, because they will impose police services, protective services will impose a fine on anyone parking in these laneways. And Scott, I think that that message has to go out, and comms, your communications have to be very upfront and repeated in the spring, during the summer, and the fall. So, Madam Chair, this is a good step forward. And again, it will require collaboration with the standing committee or police services so that it is being enforced. And if I could just add one other item on this, Madam Chair, is that in the springtime, when the cycling lanes do open up, I think we have to do a better job in getting them cleaned up, because as you know, during the winter, when they do the plowing and all that sand that's been dropped and salt, it's pushed to the side of the roads. So it creates a lot of safety barriers for cyclists. So that's just something that, you know, if we identify the pathways, we know where they are, people know where they are. If you park in them, you're going to be fined, but also they should be cleaned coming the start of every new cycling year. Thank you for that, Scott. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any more questions regarding signage at this time? You good? Okay, thank you. Are we good? Do we have to move that on to council, or is that going on? Is that someone, did we push that through?
Yes, we need a motion of
So,
committee. to
moved
move
by
that
His
through.
Worship, seconded by Councillor Twill. All those in favor? Yep. Good? Okay. Hopefully people will start following the rules. Number B is the 5-year capital plan. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as everyone's aware, we've been very hard at work trying to develop some long-term planning in terms of construction in our capital program. This is beneficial for a number of reasons. One, the public has an idea of what we're expecting to do over the next 5 years, as well as council. Helps us better budget and for finance purposes, financing all this work is a bit of a balancing act, and so it makes it easier for our finance team to make sure we can do that. As well as it helps us and my staff prepare for future years of design work so that we're ready early in the year and not behind when we're trying to get tenders out and waiting for projects to get off the ground. So the first one you're going to see here, the first page, the attachment, is just an overall summary of the 2 5-year plans that we're presenting here today. One is our street or major construction plan for the next 5 years that we're proposing. The other one is a sidewalk and multi-use paved pathway construction. And this is a continuation of the one that was previously approved 2 years ago. We're just trying to update that to reflect some of the changes that have happened in terms of moving around some of the priorities, as well as adding 2 more years to that plan so that we can keep current with a 5-year plan. So if you proceed to the next page, we can kind of go over we've identified the streets, and from the beginning and ends of each section for each year that we're recommending. How we've come up with this list is a number of priorities we've kind of set. And the first major one is we are looking at streets or areas that do not have any sidewalk or multi-use pathway on any side of the road. That was the first. That was our first criteria. There's a lot of underserved streets for active transportation and to get folks active and outside. We hear it all the time that people are, especially with the volume of traffic increases around the city, people are scared to walk on the edge of the road in a residential street just because of the volume of traffic and sometimes some of the speeds that we're seeing. So that's why it was a high priority for us to narrow that down. Then we looked at areas of the city that have some already sidewalks in the neighborhood, but we're missing some key connection points to some key areas. We're looking around schools, around major parks, because these are kind of 2 of the main destinations that people who are walking are trying to get to, parks and schools in those neighborhood communities. And then lastly, we're looking at just all that remaining balance of streets that we still should have sidewalks on at the end of the day. We're not recommending to put sidewalks on cul-de-sacs or crescents where there's no cutting through of traffic. It's very low local traffic, low volumes and local traffic, just because you're just not seeing those traffic volumes or the speeds on those areas. There are going to be a couple exceptions to those rules, and one big exception is going to be we've identified Atlantic Court, just because of the sheer volume of residents and units on that street. That has been identified as one of those cul-de-sacs that would be an exception to those priorities that we have put out there. So with that, that's kind of the high level how we came up to this list. Of course, we're listening to council from previous meetings and requests. We're also looking at where development's happening and trying to prepare for that as well. It's a extensive list, and I'd take any questions if there are any questions that you guys have.
Scott, I know Councillor Tweel's going to ask about Allen Street here in a minute. I'm going to let him speak to that, but is there a sidewalk on that section of the road? Yeah. There is? Yeah. Okay, no, I'm just checking because I do understand. I want to make sure. So your criteria, you're saying at least one side, these are the roads that have no sidewalk and would be considered either connections to what has already started or high-traffic area.
Oh, here, sorry.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that's correct. We're looking at those streets that do not have sidewalks or multi-use pathways to date. We consider those underserved to our community. I'll speak to Councillor Tweel's question again. Allen Street does have a sidewalk on the south side, and there is only one apartment building that it serves. Yes, it does serve a older community for sure. And so one of the things we're going to look at this year coming up, and our own crews can do it. So their front door, if everyone's familiar with that location, they have a front door and large sidewalk because there's a steep embankment that comes down right to the public right of way. And then I think it's about 40 meters to the corner of St. Peter's Road and Allen Street. We're going to look at putting that sidewalk in from the end of their walkway down to that set of signals. So they'll have 40 meters to walk. Then they're at a signalized intersection that is fully set up for pedestrians, and then they can venture back over the other direction. And that's a short-term solution. Do I think all major streets, and Allen Street is definitely a major street, should have sidewalks or multi-use pathway and sidewalk on both sides?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and we will get to that point. Just look at North River Road. We have that master plan that we're working on. Yes, the long-term vision is for that, but North River Road is not on this plan right now because all that work will be part of our major capital construction. So,
No, that makes sense.
just because you're not seeing it on this list doesn't mean there's not going to be multi-use pathways and other sidewalks that we add over the next 5 years. They're coming in other work.
That makes sense. Councillor Tweel.
Yes. I think when you look at this, this come up at council when we approved the development out off of Royalty Road about having the necessary infrastructure in place. Sidewalk comes up to, from Mount Edward Road, comes up to the driveway into the parking lot for Mr. Plummer. So the residents, for the last 4 years, we made numerous attempts to have a continuation sidewalk / active transportation pathway from the driveway into the parking lot all the ways up to St. Peter's Road. Now, I know there's challenges, Scott, but the seniors that live in that area are not just looking at from the stairway or whatever you want to call it, the steps down, which is on city property, down to Allen Street and that section, and then to continue on to St. Peter's Road. They're looking for, a natural progression from Mr. Plummer and the owner in particular, Mr. Lapierre. I mean, I've had numbers of discussions with him, and this is, certainly one of the things he's a major property owner. He wants to work with the city. He has said he will work with the city. He's a great businessman. He's a great citizen, and I think I know what you're saying, but with all due respect, I don't think it goes far enough, and I'd like to see, us work with this particular property owner, Mr. Plummer, and with who owns that apartment building? Killam. Killam. I think there's an opportunity to work with these two property owners to install or to construct that pathway. I'm now more in favor, Scott, of the active transportation pathway. What we did on Towers Road is fantastic. The feedback is overwhelming. People are very pleased. It was a great investment, and I want to not only explore, but I'd like to move that forward. We had a meeting with the residents, myself and Riley. Riley, it was really advantageous to have Riley there. And, some of the folks that were in attendance in that meeting are people have made tremendous contributions to this community. We have to keep in mind that Allen Street, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, the traffic on that street is extremely intense. I would argue it's the third busiest street in Charlottetown. It's the major east-west connector from the old city to Parkdale, CDP, Civic Center, people looking to go to Morel, St. Peter's, go to Stratford. I mean, the traffic is Scott, you know it. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you know how busy it is. I really think that we need to go the extra mile. And what I'm looking for here from the committee is support to not only to do this design work, but have this in this year's capital project. I have made numerous attempts over the last 4 years. I've talked to the former CAO. I know I talked to you, Scott. I've also talked to Joey McKinnon. We've had a number of meetings, and you know, I got retired school teachers there that I know personally. A lot of people that live not only in that building that are looking forward to this facility and venue, but others that live in the back as well. And why don't we let's go in and just do the job, do it right, and just be done with it. So I want to propose that be part of this year's capital project. This is not something new, as you know, Scott, that I've been promoting or the residents on their behalf. This is something that they've been wanting. And, you know, we had a big turnout at that meeting of people that live in that complex. And, you know, they're looking for positive results. And I really want this part of this year's capital project.
Thank you, Councillor Twill. And I think if you look at the list, I mean, knowing that there is a sidewalk there and they're going to work to safely get the residents in that building to the crosswalk to get to the sidewalk, we look at streets. I've been asking for Alena Court for 7 years, and we have seniors. We have no sidewalk for them to get. We have people walking on the bus. We have children walking to Norwood Road to get the bus. We look at Norwood Road with people in the apartment buildings at the top and newcomer families to Canada that are walking with their kids down to access the bus that's only a Friar Drive with no sidewalk. So I think we have to be, you're a great advocate for your people, for sure, and it's not something that I don't think, for me personally, I would have trouble supporting a second sidewalk on a street when we are saying we're going to be able to get access to a safe crosswalk to get to the crosswalk when there are these streets identified with similar concerns and similar issues that have no sidewalks. So unless someone else is jumping in to say something different, Councillor McAleer.
I just wanted to ask, I think, am I right in understanding 500 lengths or 500 meters of sidewalk versus 500 meters MUPP? It's about equal in cost, the sidewalk over just in general?
The costs are roughly the same now that we're seeing. So there's no, we used to see it a little bit cheaper for asphalt, paved pathways, there used to be, but now just cost of aggregate has gone up significantly over the past few years. We're not seeing any difference. So we now estimate about the same for whether it's a concrete sidewalk or a multi-use pathway.
Okay, Madam Chair, could I just ask the chief engineer? Scott, if you go to page 43, your street connection projects. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know some are going to be there. You have, like, you're going to have to do that Spencer Drive sooner than later, which is at $8 million.
Yep.
You have to do Seaview Boulevard reconstruction. That's 3.4. It's in the top section. And then you have Eastern Gateway, so Phase 2. Do you think you'll be doing Phase 2 this year?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
we expect
so
to tender
that's-
in January. That's correct.
That's an 8.2 million. And then I believe you said you're going to do University Avenue, Phase 1?
So phase one is a reduced amount. So when we put this plan together, we're trying to balance priorities and traffic needs. So one thing we were looking at, okay, if we're
You
working
have
in a
4
certain
million.
area, if we're working in University Avenue and we close down that road, where's traffic going to go to? And a big chunk of that traffic is going to go on North River Road. So we kind of want to shift gears a little bit for next year. And if you'll see number SC-007, that's North River Road Phase 1. We want to look at upgrading the intersection next year. So that'd be the North River Road Capitol Drive intersection. Because right now that is the biggest bottleneck on that street. So we want to increase that capacity before we impact traffic on University Avenue.
So you won't be doing University Avenue Phase 1? Is that right?
What that phase is looking at putting in the multi-use pathway and some of the underground utilities.
Okay.
Would be
And-
next year.
And that's 4 million?
Again, that's very high level. We're waiting to, I
That's
expect
high
that-
level, like,
I
that's high
expect
estimate?
that one to come down
Okay.
until we're working with our consultant right now. The biggest challenge we're facing right now with University Avenue is working with our Maritime Electrics and Bell Alliance of the world. They're busy like everyone else, and we're trying to nail down what their needs are for underground infrastructure and how that impacts our property or our work. And how that all comes together. So that's what our biggest holdup has been to date is the underground utilities.
So Scott, you're going to do that, but it won't be estimated at 4, it could be, let's say, 2.
It could be 2 at the end of the day, and we
Then
can
you're
always
adding-
reduce that
then-
scope for
And you're
sure.
adding North River, which is 3.5.
And that, again, high level, it depends. Right now, we've engaged our consultant who's doing the review. They're going to give us some numbers. I think that's high as well right now.
So they can balance out to about 2 million, 2 million.
Yes, like,
And the last one, Scott, is Grafton Street Phase 1. Are you looking at Grafton Street, Edward to Weymouth this year?
no, that's not until year 2.
It's 2025.
Yeah.
So in the first, well, Madam Chair, so what you have in the first, those 5 projects, you're looking at about 22 million next year.
Yes, and some of that's carried forward from this year as well.
Yeah.
So there's some of that
So
budget carries forward.
That to me is a concern, Madam Chair. I know we have to do the work, and I know we have our specific projects, but these are huge projects that we have to do. And I know that we all have our projects that we want to put in the queue, and I understand what the councillor from Ward 4 is saying, but I agree with him, something has to be put in, but could I just ask that if you look at the Google Maps, Mr. Plummer is right out to street side, so we have to get an access through there. Either we tear the front of the building down, or we come out on the sidewalk, because the sidewalk that is already running off Mount Everett Road up, would that be east or south, Scott?
Say that again, sorry. The south side would be the sidewalk
So
in Allen,
that
yeah.
runs south up east. It only goes to the parking lot of Mr. Plummer.
Or
and then
that's the
it's-
north side one, sorry.
Yeah.
The north side sidewalk.
So that stops, but if to extend that sidewalk in front of Mr. Plummer, it's going to come out into Allen Street, because I've been down it, I've walked it, so I think we have to do some planning for it. And in the meantime, we do have that sidewalk on the north side.
The south side is,
South
yeah.
side.
And that's what I said too. This is a short-term solution to connect where the primary, or most of the users are coming out the front door, down their steps, get them 40 meters to the crosswalk, which is a signalized intersection at St. Peter's and Allen Street, and then they can go anywhere. And it will be a concrete sidewalk just like everywhere else. And it will be built the same way so that whenever we are ready to extend it, it will literally just be removing their stairs out of the way, and they're going to have to reconfigure their stairwell. And then we extend it beyond. So it's not wasted work by any means. It would be part of the overall plan to install that sidewalk. And yes, Allen Street, yes, at some point in time should have 2. It's just where does that fit in the priorities for the city?
And this is something that you can do, you said, with our own crew this year? Like, this would be
This summer.
something
Yep,
this
that's
summer that
correct.
could
And
be
that's what
done
we
in place, so
anticipate.
that there's something in place for them immediately? We're
Yep.
not waiting till year 4 to have it done?
Exactly.
Okay.
It doesn't require a lot of design work.
Reason I'm saying this, look, I know there are a lot of residents, but going back to what Councillor Twill said the other night, I think at council, is that and I think you've talked about this, Madam Chair, we have to set up something in our development agreements that new developments, as you said many times, Madam Chair, and I think Councillor Twill echoed the other night, our development agreements have to look at developers building the sidewalks or cost sharing them, putting the lights in, If there's, and as you know, Scott, any ditch infilling since 2004 was to be the responsibility of the developer. Now, there was a lot of catch-up that happened from 2004 to 2018. However, Madam Chair, I think the Allen Street project is important to me, but I think we have to get some design, and look at the big projects we're looking at. $22 million.
No, and I think that that's fair, that we don't, yeah, I'm coming to you. Just give me a minute. I don't think that we take it off. I think we do have to look at what we can do cost-effective until maybe it's time. But there are a lot of projects on here that have been waiting and in the queue for a long time, too. So before we go putting double sidewalks, I'd like to see some of these people have access to safe walkways, too. Councillor Twill?
Yeah, I'll just remind the chair that this, again, is an extremely busy street. This isn't a neighborhood street. It's not a secondary street, okay? So we have to keep that in mind. So with all due respect to yourself as chair and to our manager, I would like to propose that, and I know the mayor brought up about in front of Mr. Plummer, as I indicated, Blair Lapierre is willing to work with the city. He's an honorable man, and I think that, look, we're going to do some work. It's not a long stretch. Let's get the design work done. I marked it off. There's 4.5 feet there. You move the bay windows. Just hear me out.
But Councillor Twill, it's not that. Here's what my fare is.
Yeah.
Every time I drive down
Yep,
South and University Avenue,
yep.
pedestrians are almost on the roadside. That's
But we're gonna
sidewalk-
address that.
We have major
I understand
concerns.
that.
And to think that we can run another sidewalk so close to this, one of the most busiest streets in Charlottetown,
I know-
we have to be more.
I understand,
So-
Mr. Mayor. So,
I
So-
want to make sure that, yes, I'm for the design.
so
I'm just going to say this, guys. What we can do is we've made it known. We approve the money. The engineering and operational staff determine based on the criteria that we approve, which we've approved.
I'm-
They determine and they propose, which they have. We can give them something else to think about. If everybody in this committee wants to put Allen Street and bump another project, that's
No,
within the right of the
no.
committee. Well, I
With all
think what
due
you're
respect,
hearing.
Madam Chair, you know what? It's not bumping, it's including. I
But it's
never
money,
once.
Mitchell.
Okay, but let me finish. I never once said negate another project. That's not what I'm about.
But you just
Well, no,
heard
no,
what the
but let
mayor
me-
said. Where is the money coming
Well,
from?
you know what? If we give the manager direction, I'm sure, he's very frugal with the dollars. All I'm asking, let's do it. It's been there for a long time. This is a major, major street. Talk to people like, people like Ken Gillis and Alan Scales and Eric Ellsworth, Linwood J, and some of the people that live in this building. They've been asking, this is an extremely busy street. This isn't a neighborhood street. So we got to put things in context. So, Mr. Mayor, you listening? Oh, good. So, say good. Well, that's great. So what I want to do is put a proposal that we do the design work and we do the project completely. It's not a long stretch. It's only a short stretch. Let's include it. I'm not saying subtract or delete. I never once suggested that. All I'm asking, Scott, please add it to the capital project. And I want to put that proposal on the floor.
You don't need a resolution for that. Just put it on he'll discuss it with his staff and see
Yeah.
what they can do.
Okay,
Because
please,
you know what
Scott, include it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then,
Well, I think we have to approve the final plan, because
Yeah.
that's what our job is as a council. So,
Well-
and again, it comes back to, how long's that building been there?
Mr. Plummer,
No, the apartment.
it goes back to, it was Kevin McDonald that built it.
Yeah.
Then it was sold to Killam, so it's I'd say it's 10 years old plus.
Okay, so they've been there for 10 years. So they've been wanting a sidewalk, but we're giving them a safe access to a sidewalk with lighting to get to the other side, to get to where they need to get, where there's been people on this list that have been waiting 30-plus years for a sidewalk. So for me personally, I'm not interested in adding it over Norwood Road, or adding it over Capitol Drive to Sandstone from North River myself, but if the other two committee members want to add it right now, they are certainly within their right.
Gentlemen?
Do you guys want to add this?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to add to do a design. That's, to do a design first, and then we'll look at the cost. Scott we need to do that first.
Okay, so.
So has there been any design work done, Scott?
There's been no full-fledged design work done.
Okay,
So
let's do the design work. And then I'd,
But that doesn't mean that the sidewalk gets added to the
no,
list
but
right
you know
now.
what, let's,
The sidewalk, yeah, where's the design? Do you have work in here? Do you bring design work, or is that in your own operational day-to-day budget, Scott?
it's not a very long section.
Yeah, no, in our capital budget, we do have an engineering line for sidewalks, so that's where we take from for hiring consultants to do this type of work.
Can
Is
we
there
do-
enough, is there enough money in your budget to do the design work for Allen Street, or would you need more money approved?
I'd have to look at what we're going to be adding. You'll see later on, the line item for engineering will be here. So I'd have to look at that, see if we would need to add a little bit more to that to make sure
Okay,
that.
so
we
if
can
that's
do it.
within reason and it's not going crazy, then we can look at adding it in. But I know that there's still design work to be done for projects that are getting done next year. So we have to make sure that we have enough money. It's great to want to do everything, but there's only so much money. And I'd like it to be realistic based on what we're actually going to be able to do. I liked it when Sue Fraser pointed that out last year. We have all these projects, but what are realistically are we going to be able to accomplish within that so that we're budgeting kind of more practical? So can we ask you to come back and look at that potential design for Allen Street?
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you.
Yes, we can look at that. If it's not going to go next year, though, we will not make it a design priority. We have a number of other projects that are in the hopper that will be our priority to get designed. So it would be a later in the year design, more around getting numbers around this time of year next year.
All we're doing, Madam Chair, is a design, so we just.
I think
tendered out
what
for
he's
design.
saying, yeah,
I
that it won't be
tendered
tendered.
out for design. It's not a big, we're not building the Confederation Bridge here. So-
Okay, so just let me understand it again. So the manager is going to do the design work, and then he's going to come back to the committee to see what the cost would be, correct?
I guess so.
Pardon me?
I guess so.
That's, okay. So I don't want to be evasive and ambiguous about this, because I have to report back to them. I got to go back to another meeting.
You need to
All
go
right?
back and hopefully you can tell them that the discussion at committee level was right now, the priorities are streets and roads that don't have any sidewalks. This committee has agreed to look at doing design work. The sidewalk will be, short-term implementation will happen in the spring with staff doing a short sidewalk to get them to safe access to cross, to use the existing sidewalk in place. And depending on what financial, where we are financially at that point, it will be considered after we know what the design work will be
Yeah.
done.
Just, all we want to do is just get the design work for 2024. That's it.
Now, you want to be clear, though, with them that it's the design work.
Just for 2024?
Get the design done first. Do the design. Let's go with the design.
Design.
Like Councillor Twill, we get $22 million worth of projects here.
Right.
For streets. Like, this
This is not a long.
this is taken.
I
you know,
understand that,
I
Mr.
know.
Mayor, but these people have been waiting.
Yeah, but you
okay?
know what,
It's
this-
not a neighborhood street. It's not a secondary street. This is a major street in the city of Charlottetown.
And I want to make sure anything that we design is going to be safe and secure for the users. That's what we need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that was our capital projects. Councillor McAleer, did you have anything else you wanted to add before I move on to the next section? Okay.
So I believe we just need a motion, because we have in the past, when these were adopted, they went to council to accept the 5-year plan, so we just need a recommendation to move forward to council.
Do I have someone to move that?
Move to accept, but to include a design for Allen Street between Mount Edward Road and St. Peter's Road.
That's not part of the so that'll be under another section.
No, I thought we were wrapping up 5-year plans. Did you want?
The engineering, is that in that piece?
So we can, I don't think we need to put it in here because we're not
Okay.
putting it we're actually designating what roads to do for especially next year. And keep in mind, everyone, this changes from year to year. There's
That's right.
always adjustments. And it's based on changes in development around the city, other work that's been taking place. You know, if a street has a lot of major underground infrastructure repairs that no one was aware of in water sewer, then we might shift gears. So it is a living document, but the main goal is to get next year's approved so that we can at least start design for the next couple years over the next 12 months.
So, Scott, not to belabor the point, but in terms of the design work, what's the quickest that can be done?
Counselor Twill, this is being added. There's projects that we're approving right now that still need design work to be done that are in the plans to be completed for 2024. So it's not, as I've heard, unless I'm not clear, and Scott, you can clarify, this is not going to trump and be a priority to get out and get design work done before the projects that you're planning to do in 2024. Allen Street will have work done to make it safer. It's not going to be part of the 2024 plan for full sidewalk. Am I wrong?
That's a committee decision, Madam
That's
Chair.
that was what I said as well, yes, was that.
But the
where
committee
it's-
makes the decision.
Where it's a design, our priorities, so if we issue a tender, our first thing consultants ask, what are our priorities? What are you trying to get completed this year? And that's what we focus on designing first. So if we're not expecting to construct in 2024, it'd be at the low end of the list of, to be designed.
Okay, is there anybody in the committee that's putting Allen Street's second sidewalk a priority to trump another
I'm
project?
putting the design work for that
Yeah, do you want
project.
that trumping the design work then for projects that are in the works for
Well,
2024?
It's just an add-on. It's
Yeah,
not
you know
a
what?
huge.
He's asking when it's
I-
going to be done. I'm asking, do you want that
you know
done
what?
first?
Can I just finish, Councillor Twill?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I want it just part of the 2024 budget.
Yeah,
That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
That's it.
yeah.
Then
And you know
Counselor
what?
Twill, you're asking when it's going to be done. He can't tell you that right now.
You know what? I have to take exception to you saying trump other projects. I didn't say that. I said include. Okay? So with all, I find that very troublesome.
Well,
I
I'm
really
sorry
do,
if you
Chair.
find it troublesome, Counselor Twill. I find
I
it
find-
troublesome that you just can't work within
My
what's
job is
reasonable.
to advocate.
It is,
for-
but our
that's
job
right.
is to
But
also
I
make
find
sure
it
the whole city's
troublesome when
taken
you
care
said
of.
trump other
Okay,
projects
I'm sorry
because-
I used the word Trump, Counselor
please,
Twill.
yes,
Okay.
I
we're
accept
gonna-
your apology.
Thank you very
So,
much. Okay.
one other question before we go, Scott, before we sign off here. I appreciate the list that you have here in terms of resurfacing. As you know, Wendy Drive was on the list last year, and then somehow it got removed. Is it on here? It was removed, Scott. It was on the list.
Oh, sorry, sir.
I haven't, I don't know the lifts off the top of my head, so I can't comment.
Could
on
you
them.
please look at that? It was on the
Yep.
list. It was on your.
I don't recall if it was on or not. We'd have to
was,
look
Scott.
into that.
I'm being honest with
Yeah.
you. So please, I've been, once again, it's been a long time, and it was on the list. It didn't get done. I didn't say too much. I was optimistic it was going to be on this list for this year. So could you please revisit that?
We will definitely look at it if it was on in a previous year and it got cut for some reason, we will look at why, if it's not on the list, why it's not. And yes, but we'll look into it. Yeah.
Please.
And we've also included extra funding in this road asphalt budget. Have you, Scott? Because I thought we as a committee had committed to making sure that we're getting out ahead, so we're not taking so long to circle back to the roads.
So I guess if we want to move into the next topic, we can get into that in more detail again.
It-
We still need a motion of the committee to move forward the
Moved.
5-year plans.
Yeah.
5-year
And then we'll
sidewalk
get into the budget discussion for the
Yeah,
upcoming
moved.
season.
Okay, so, and with the understanding that you're going to include the design work for Allen Street?
Yeah, just.
That's moved,
Moved.
seconded by,
Yeah,
and everybody in favor?
yeah.
Counselor Twill? Yeah? Okay.
So, Madam Chair, are we going to 9C?
I'm just trying to get back. See, the problem with trying to work off a computer when you're trying to read and follow, it takes me a long time to go back.
Mr. Adams, is it capital budget discussion?
Yeah,
So-
that's
okay.
correct. So it'd be 45 of 56 if you're looking at the PDF. on
It's
your
the
computer.
proposed street resurfacing that we're now on?
No, you went a little too far.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay. Where are we now?
it's,
Capital budget discussion?
you got it.
Okay.
Page 45.
There you go.
Is that what you're on?
So what I can do is I'll go through each major heading in detail, and then we can ask questions of each heading as we after I give my explanation, if that works for you. So I guess the first two is land property acquisitions and street rehabilitation and intersection upgrades. So this land acquisition fund, it's a bit of a holder as we we know there might be a couple projects where we may need to purchase a small triangle of land from an individual. So we like to have that money available in the event that we need to do that as we get deeper into some of our designs. In the future, as we get better with our 5-year plans, we will know that further in advance than we are at this point right now. And then having a lump sum in there versus a more defined amount in there will be, you'll see that happen more often. Under the street rehabilitations, the first big one is the resurfacing program. So as I presented during our the Friday session there a few weeks ago, we're recommending a $4.5 million budget, which is a bit of an increase from this year, about $500,000. And this is to, again, we looked at from a high level network perspective, what it would take to renew our streets on a 25-year basis. And we think of 4.5 million. Again, it will increase year over year as CPI and the cost of materials go up. But we are very happy with where we're landing this year at $4.5 million. And as you'll see in the report, the next report. Then the rest of the streets were what we just recommend to move forward to council in the 5-year plan. Then we also have our engineering funds in there, about $600,000. That helps us. That covers our costs of engineering for most of this work and any external assistance we need.
Madam Chair, can I just get a clarification here?
Yeah.
So, Scott, your capital budget 23-24. Like, we're in this is our 23-24. Is it 24-25 that we're looking at? Like,
Yes, that is so the
Yeah.
first column, my apologies, I don't
Yeah,
know why that's
because
not
I'm looking
changed
here,
over.
Scott, and I just
Yep.
want to know what's left
You're
over
very
for
right. So the first
23-24.
column should carry over from this current budget. The next one that says 23-24, that was an oversight, I apologize, good catch.
Yeah.
That should be 24-25, new, that's our new asks for this year for this work, for all this work.
Yeah, so I said 22 million, because I only identified a few projects, so you have all the projects there now.
Yes, everything's there now, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And so we're coming to the end of the third quarter. So you only spent 21 million of your budget? Like, I'm trying to figure out, what did you spend?
For this year, I don't have that final number yet. We're still getting invoices in as work's still proceeding. So we don't have that number on this document. We just have what's going to be carried forward for next year.
Well, how do you know what's being carried forward, but if you don't have all the bills in?
Well, three of the four projects we were not unable to get off the ground this year. So you got Spencer Drive, Eastern Gateway, Spencer Drive, Seaview, and University Avenue Phase 1. So we know those carryovers amount because we know we're not going to proceed forward. Eastern Gateway Phase 1, we've started the work, but it's just mostly water and sewer aspects. So we know the public works portion of that bill is carried forward to next year.
Okay, so if I look at the street rehabilitation Seaview Boulevard, is your total budget for 24, 25, or, which is the,
Will be 2.1. So we have a 2 million carry forward from this year, an additional 100,000, just accounting for CPI and increases in that nature for a total of 2.1 million.
so that's for the public works and
Portion,
then water
yes.
and wastewater, I think, was at $1 million?
That's correct. They'll have a portion in their budget.
And the tender that came in was only one tender, it was 3.4?
It was 3.4 plus taxes, I believe. So
Right.
it was quite significant.
The taxes and in and
Yep.
out.
And they also said they couldn't do the work until this coming year anyway. So
So you'll re-tender it,
correct. Yep, it's going to be
hope
retendered
for-
in January.
and you're hoping for a better price.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay. Could I, Madam Chair, just another question while we're looking at it? Rehabilitation Norwood Road. So when I think of Norwood Road, I'm thinking is that Norwood Road that runs in behind the C&D pit
That's correct.
out to McCrae Drive?
Yep, and that's included in our street resurfacing program, that 4.5 million. So that's going to be fully paved. It's been asked for not only from residents, but emergency services have required it. And we saw a glaring safety issue this past summer. There was an accident, one of the roundabouts. I think it was which one was it? Would have been the first roundabout, I want to say. Yeah, Ginger, that's correct. There was an accident, Ginger, truck overturned, and it blocked traffic. The only way to get around was to go through Mount Stewart, Mermaid, and come back through that way. So that's why it's recommended to be paved in this upcoming season.
And there's been a fire at the midway of Norwood Road as well. Your
Correct.
Worship, and in winter, those residents would have been trapped. We need to have a second entrance to the access with all the development up in that area, so
You're familiar with the roadway?
I'm very familiar with the
Yeah,
road.
Have you been up during winter time or in the springtime?
I'm sorry?
Have you been up there in the winter and then in the springtime?
The winter, you can't use it. It's not plowed.
No, you don't drive up, you walk up, right?
Uh-huh.
And have you been there in the spring when the snow melts? How much water
Yeah,
is
it's
coming
been-
off the airport? Like, there's a lot of issues up there. To say it's going to be 4 million? Wow, this is going to be worse than Spencer Drive. That's a major issue there.
But
You
we're
have
allowing
all-
development all up there too.
Well, yeah, but
Right? So if we're going to have development and more houses, we have to have a second
Back
point.
off. Nope. So it's not 4 million. We're only expecting to be about 350,000. The airport knows they have a water issue, and they have to correct it. Yeah. So it's not a $4 million repair. It's a pulverized. We're going to put gravels on it and base and seal.
I mixed that up with.
Yeah, you mix that up with the University Avenue. Yeah. That's correct, because it's included in the $4.5 million on the street resurfacing program. Because it will all be tendered as one project.
But the airport is in partnership, knowing that there's work to be done as a result of some of,
They've had a number of water issues in that
Yeah.
area, as you're well aware, Fryer and all that stuff. They have to control their water on their property, and it cannot impact our public right-of-way the way it has been. So those are things we'll look at as it's final, but we're quite confident. We just need to pulverize about a few inches of gravel and then base and seal it up there.
I've been up the road many years. Is it 66 feet wide? At some points, if two cars meet, like.
Again, I
guys,
don't have all the details.
I know,
My
there's a lot
team,
of
I work with
details there,
a big
guys,
team
and-
that puts all these together.
And I agree with the chair and the councillor from the area that this is needed, but
Yep.
there's some major, like, they've tried so much up there the last 10 years to just provide a base.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't believe how much water comes out that airport.
That there's been discussion, I know, with Hambley's, with their new development, with property owners, like you said, on Friar, as well as with the Airport Authority, and they're aware, and they're going to be working on rectifying some of the issues that are being caused as a result. There's work, it's not going to just be on us. They have to do their own work on their property.
Okay, so Madam Chair, have we done the engineering?
That would be a question for him.
No, we haven't done the full engineering on it just yet.
So.
But we're taking place.
The 350,000 is for the engineering or for the paving?
For the paving. It's going to be done, looked at in-house. We don't think it's going to be as major as you believe it's going to be.
I hope you're right,
yeah.
Scott. I hope you're right, and you can pave it, but be ready for it to be in quite a bit of disarray after the first spring, because it's been a huge issue for a long time. And to reconstruct it, Madam Chair, it's not going to be 350. It's not just a paving issue. It's a reconstruction. And as I said, I've been up that roadway in the winter, walked it, and in the spring, where there's traffic, when two vehicles come down, two can't go side, you have to pull over. So we're creating I would call it a back entrance to get out in case of fire or something else. But if we're going to do anything, let's do it right.
Maybe just, there's nothing really budgeted right now in numbers, so why don't we just wait and hear what comes back from the engineering?
Can we look at the design too? I know that's an operational issue, but I'd like to see the design that the in-house is proposing. I really would.
I'm sure that'll come with a cost, price tag associated, so yep, for sure. Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, thank you. Just to confirm, Madam Chair, or if it has to go to the manager, like Eastern Gateway Phase 2, 8 million. Am I right? Is that the cost to reroute Water Street? Is that Phase 2?
So phase 2 of this amount would include the major stormwater system that we're putting in and the new roadway. So it's significant dollars because it's such a large storm system that's going in there.
And is there an ISIP piece to that that's not noted on?
So we
here?
have inquired about it to see if we can increase our funding request. We're waiting to hear back from them. So that inquiry has gone through, and waiting to see if they'll entertain an additional request to our existing 3.14 million.
Yeah. And just to circle back to the Capitol Drive, North River Road intersection redo, 3.5. Are you optimistic that can be done in the 24-25 year?
That's what we're pushing towards. That's why we're starting to look at the design right now. We've shifted gears to make sure that we can get the design done by spring. The surveying's being all done right now, so that we're ready for design over the winter months and tender early spring. So, as of right now, with our consultant, we've talked to them, and they believe we should be on track to do something late in the season next year.
Just one more follow-up. Is that potentially, without getting into the weeds, but on what that would look like? Will that look differently coming out of Tim Hortons to turning left and that sort of thing, and or coming across and turning left to go into the Esso and McDonald's? Is that going to be addressed when
All that's on the
done?
table for sure. There's a number of things we have to balance, and that's access to property, impact to businesses, from a financial standpoint. So all those things will be looked at as we propose a final design for that.
And Madam Chair, I appreciate the time that you allow us, but I'm glad the CAO is here and the Chair of Finance, and you're a Finance member at large on the chair on the Standing Committee of Finance Administration. This just again tells us that, if you look at the critical areas in our funding agreement with the province, public works is one of them. And he's got $34 million, and, we're expecting to get money from ISIP, we're expecting to get money from those sources, but we need a better share from what the province collects. And we saw that in police by, through the hiring of 6 police officers. Everything is crunching down. And to think, well, you can ask some bureaucrats, well, all you have to do is raise taxes. No, just give us a better fair cut of the tax you're cutting. Like, we have to keep repeating that message, Madam Chair, and I know the CAO is doing a good job with it too, but every time we get an opportunity, we have to be singing from the same hymn book.
No, you're right, Your Worship. There's a lot of money
Just a
to
que-
run the city.
Just a question. Who are the bureaucrats that are saying raise the taxes?
We're not having that discussion.
No,
Not
There's
he got up
nobody,
about
yeah.
No discussion.
who?
No, thank you,
Nobody's
Madam Chair,
saying
thank
that.
you, Madam Chair, for that quote.
Nobody, we're going to move on, Councillor
So
Twill.
you don't want to
Thank you
answer
very
it?
much.
You don't want to answer my question?
We're not having that discussion right
I'm not
now.
asking for a discussion. I just want to know who made.
But we're
who-
not talking about
No.
that.
I just
That was
wanna
a
know who's a
comment he
refer-
made. We're
who's a
moving
reference
on.
point.
Thank
Reference
you.
point.
Who, Philip?
It's a reference point.
Okay, I'm going to actually, I have no problem shutting it down if we can't just keep on with business, okay? So let's just carry on. Okay. Thank you. Scott, we need to move this capital budget. Is there any more questions on the capital budget, per se?
I'll have more later. Not now, but I'll have more later. I'll have more later, guaranteed.
That's great. Is there anything that, I know you would have read this prior to coming to committee. Is there anything that we can talk about at committee that we can fine tune before we send this on to council?
No, it's a moot point right now. I tried to the committee level.
So, Madam Chair, could I just go down to page 46 of 56?
Yeah?
I think you and I have talked about this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we were looking at some money in that budget line, stormwater management, for, some issues where we had to provide some stormwater management upgrade, or some areas that were dangerous for, I know we're not into ditch infilling anymore, but there are some areas of the city that, Scott, we've looked at in the past that we want to, make sure we had the money. So it wasn't in last year's budget, but it was in the budget year before, 21, 22, or 21, 22.
It's
Is it
there,
there?
isn't it? 350,000?
Scott, I just want to get a clarification on it.
Yeah, so if we find any dishes that are of concern
Yeah.
from a safety standpoint, absolutely. Whether it's our own staff, and that comes out of the one that's called infill and repairs.
Yeah,
That's where we do driveway culverts and all that. So if our own staff are doing it, comes from that account. The $500,000 account below that, that's if we have contractors that we need to do it. So yes.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
we-
that was in there.
we always have money in
Madam
there
Chair,
for that.
You did talk about it, and,
Yeah.
promise made, promise delivered.
No, we want to make sure that we understand what we're approving. So that's good. It is there.
I'll move it.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Twill?
Scott, as you know, you brought forward a recommendation, the council supported it. It's the consulting work for Queen Street, down in that lower part of Queen. Where are we at with the consulting's work, and do you anticipate any work being done this year?
No, we don't anticipate any work being done this year. This year will be fact-finding, choosing the best practice, best options for the work, and then looking at doing it in the next couple of years. I think it is in the 5-year plan where we have kind of put it in. I think, in 2026 is when have fitted in now. Again, that can be fluid. It all depends on how we make out with this year's review or
Priorities.
exactly.
Okay. All right, so let's continue.
Move it.
Capital budget?
Yeah, I'm
You're
moving it.
moving it,
Yes.
that accepted as is
Yes.
to go on?
Yes.
Is there someone to second the capital budget to council? Councillor McAleer? I guess to finance, is it? It goes to, or does it go to council?
Question?
Question called, I'll figure that out after. All those in favor?
We'll make sure it's correct in the notes or in the minutes.
Councillor McAleer, Councillor Twilly, you in favor of this to go on to council? Okay, so it's 2-1.
Yeah.
Okay,
Duly noted.
yeah. Okay, the last piece of today's business was the proposed street resurfacing. And I think that's for information, is it? That you identified the streets that you guys are recommending and you need us to approve money for? Is that what that is?
So this is what I like to say, and I should say, Madam Chair, thank you. So this is the first iteration of our street resurfacing. So we had staff go around using a new software, it's on your phone, following, it's an international standard for street ratings. So they went out and rated every single segment of road in the city. Took over close to 4 weeks, I believe, in total to do it. And it produced a big map you'll see at the end of your report showing a variety of colors. If it's green, it means it's in excellent shape. And then as you go green, light green, yellow, you're moving towards worse. And the worst is dark red. So you also have some oranges, red, and dark red in there. From this, these ratings, we have taken it and essentially said, okay, let's use the worst first and spend about $4.5 million, which is the list that we ended up with that you see here. The next step is, and I just advise everyone this, there might be the odd one street that will change in this. And that could be because right now the next step is we're going to sit down with my staff, talk about them with the, talk to them about the operation sides of our repairs. So there are some roads on here that have existing sidewalks that may only need one or two what we call stones replaced. Some of them may require extensive repair. And we need to go through this list with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that list or that amount of work for our summer crews, whether it's water and sewer or parks or public works, we can handle that volume of work. If we get to a point where there is significant too much work for this year, we will bump that road to next year and pick a road, the next road on the list that doesn't require any of that sidewalk repair today. So this is the first step. I don't see a huge change from it, but there might be the odd street that might change from this just as a result of some of those operational maintenance work that we do seasonally.
So is this something we also, I guess it's more for information then because it could change depending, but these are kind of your outlooks. You share
Absolutely.
this
And
with
we want to,
council so that they're aware.
again, as we listen to council, we want to be upfront. We want
Yep.
to be early. This is the earliest we've ever produced this list that
Yep.
I'm aware of. And that by producing this list, the goal behind the scenes, we're actually producing 2 years of work. So we can try to balance that maintenance work that we're expecting to do on all these streets over a 2-year period. Beyond 2 years, it's really hard to predict what the roads are going to look like. So
Absolutely.
that's what we're doing behind the scenes, but
Good
we want to be
planning,
upfront.
working collaboratively, all the things we've been asking for.
Exactly.
So that's good. And it will be shared, so council and residents will be able to see the existing list. So the next section, of course, is introduction of new business, and we
Yeah.
know we don't
Can I
introduce
just-
new business, but you
just-
can appoint.
Can I
Do you have
just go
something
back
on
to
the other
that,
one?
Madam Chair?
Yeah?
Scott, I've been down in a couple of streets like Ferndale. You get Ferndale on the list. I get this confused sometimes when I read it. So Ferndale, it says Ferndale from Hillside Drive to Maple Avenue. So that's going the whole ring of that street, correct? You probably don't know them.
I would have to look at it, without having the map in front of me, the map that I can zoom in. But if you want, you're more than welcome to pop in tomorrow, and
Yeah.
I can
There's
show
another-
you the
there's another
virtual
one, too.
map in person.
Havenwood out there out in your area.
Okay.
Kenwood Circle, I've been asked numerous
Mm-hmm.
times, and Roper Drive, but I can bring them up to you.
Definitely.
later.
Bring tomorrow, and I can
Thank you,
show you
Madam
where
Chair.
they end
Thank
up
you
on
very
the
much
list.
for your
Nice thing, your worship, is that because they have this new testing tool to determine where the work's required, people can ask, but if we know that the asphalt's not in bad enough shape to trump, we use the word trump, to bump some of these other projects, because we all can think our streets are bad, but it's good to mention it and they can go and reassess. But they've done the assessment for all the streets, which is nice, so they have an idea of what needs to be done right away.
And the nice part about our new tool, it gives us this map of colors. And people are very visual learners, or it does paint out quite
Yeah.
a picture. It's something that we will look to add to the website this year, so people can be aware of the conditions of the road or of the work or of our city network, and how we're working towards repairing and replacing those streets.
Say one thing, you've simplified it, that technical part that now I'm grasping it.
I think think it's good for all of us to see and to be able to look
No,
and
I'll be
understand
down
why
to see him.
certain.
I'll be down to see him.
You go ahead.
I know
We're
where,
gonna have a good
where his door
conversation.
is.
I'm sure Councillor
just go to
will
the
be back
CAO.
tomorrow too, because we're going to make sure some of these things move, because they're great advocates, which is great. Okay, so introduction of new business. Is there anything that we want added for our next agenda? If there is, you can email Scott or email moving forward.
No, just a question.
Okay.
Scott, Mount Edward Road Traffic Management Plan. You tell me what that consists of.
Yes, I appreciate you mentioning that. So as we've done with University Avenue and we're doing with Northville Road currently, we will be doing a traffic management plan for Mount Edward Road. And again, without these plans, we won't be able to know where our pressure points are and what needs upgrading now and what can wait a few years. And then with that plan, we also want to get that cross section. And what I mean by cross section, number of lanes of traffic, where the cycling lanes will be, multi-use pathways, sidewalks, all that good stuff will be part of that plan to show what that streetscape will look like on Mount Edward Road sometime in the near future.
Will that also mean going to an open house, Scott?
Absolutely, just like we did University Avenue and Northville Road, and I believe you were at Northville Road. I got to say, it was the best attended one I've ever been
good.
part of.
It was good,
I
yeah.
think we had over
Great feedback.
200 residents, which is fantastic, and people were really interested in it. So we're definitely going to do, especially for that type of plan, try to do it in the afternoon session and evening session. It was extremely successful for that, so we're going to try to do that again for the next one going forward, and hopefully it's just as successful going forward. But yes, there will be public consultation, just like we did for Northville Road.
Yeah.
Any type of these plans, yes, we want the public to be in the know and bring that information forward so that everyone has that information and we can incorporate suggestions into the final plan.
And that's where Councillor Twill, you know, your idea of the double sidewalk and active transportation and all that comes into play at that time. So
that's a
it'll
good
be
point.
great for what you've been advocating for a long time. So
And-
where
and-
I'd like to
and
wish
I just
you.
want to say to the chief engineer, that was a great presentation. Just before we go, Madam Chair, on page 28 and 38 of our digital copies, you can see all-weather highways. There's a table there, and designated highways. And then on page 38, there is another Schedule A, Schedule B, I believe. So you know what? We can use those as templates for identifying our pathways, cycle lanes.
Yeah.
That are not to be
Parked
parked on. That just
Especially your truck
simplifies
routes
it
and
when it's
those
in the.
main roads.
yeah.
Those- yeah, and I think. yeah.
Again, Madam Chair, I like your cooperation, collaboration, allowing us
Yes,
to.
I'm sure.
dialogue
I'd like
and
to wish
debate.
you all a happy holiday.
Merry Christmas. Oh, we're
I
not
will
meeting
see
again?
I'll see a few of you before that, not everybody. And I need a motion to adjourn.
And
Well-
just
Oh,
one thing
sorry.
too, just for, we plan to have the first week in January, another meeting for operation budget. That'll be coming up next. So just, you'll see some information
Ah.
coming out soon.
This guy's full of fire and brimstone.
We got to get going.
Jeez.
Contenders
That
have-
CAO's really
Eleanor's
pushing
keeping
the,
us,
pushing the needle here.
A motion
She's
to
pushing us
adjourn?
up. We got to get it
Motion
done.
to adjourn.
Seconded. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.